I held her hand the first day she went to school. I stayed awake every night when she had a fever. I skipped meals so she could eat better. I built my entire life around being her mother. For 22 years, I never questioned it. Not once. The wedding was perfect. White flowers. Soft music. Guests smiling, crying, celebrating love. I sat in the front row, holding a bouquet, watching the girl I raised walk down the aisle. My daughter. Or so I thought. Just before the ceremony began, a stranger approached me. He didn't smile. Didn't congratulate me. He handed me an envelope and said 5 words that shattered my world. You deserve to know the truth. Inside was a DNA report. Stamped. Signed. Undeniable. It said the bride was not my biological child. My hands started shaking. I looked up. Across the room, someone avoided my eyes. Someone who had known. Someone who had let me love a child that was never mine. For over 2 decades. The music started. The guests stood. Applause filled the hall. And I sat there frozen, realizing something horrifying. Everyone thought this was a wedding. But for me, it was a funeral. For my identity. For my trust. For the life I thought I understood. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I didn't stop the ceremony. Because before I confronted anyone, I needed to know one thing. Was I just lied to? Or had I been used? Don't skip this story. Because the truth didn't just change who my daughter was. It changed who I was. And what I did next. No one at that wedding was prepared for. I still remember the night she was born. Not because it was dramatic. Not because anything felt wrong. But because it felt right. The rain had been relentless that evening, pounding against the hospital windows like it was trying to get inside. I was exhausted, shaking, terrified, and then suddenly there she was. Small. Red-faced. Crying with a strength that made the nurse laugh. Congratulations, the doctor said. It's a healthy baby girl. They placed her on my chest, warm and real and mine. I named her Emily. Her father, my husband, stood beside the bed, pale and quiet. I thought he was overwhelmed. I thought he was scared of the responsibility. I didn't notice that he didn't cry. I didn't notice that he didn't look at her for long. I was too busy falling in love. Emily grew fast. She was curious, stubborn, bright. The kind of child who asked why 5 times in a row and waited for a real answer. I braided her hair every morning before school, packed her lunches, kissed her scraped knees, sat through parent-teacher meetings and dance recitals and science fairs. When she was 7, she asked me if I would always be her mom. I laughed and said, until my last breath. I meant it. My marriage didn't last. When Emily was 9, her father left. No screaming. No scandal. Just a quiet conversation at the kitchen table and a suitcase by the door. I'm not happy, he said. I think we both know that. He paid child support. Visited twice a year. Called on birthdays. I told myself it was better this way. I told myself Emily didn't need him. And maybe that was true. Because she had me. Years passed. I worked 2 jobs when I had to. Turned down promotions that meant travel. Missed vacations. Missed sleep. Missed pieces of myself I didn't even realize I was giving up. But I never missed her. Every sacrifice felt obvious. That's what mothers do. When Emily was 16, she started asking questions about her birth. Was I early? Did I look like you when I was born? Why don't I have baby photos with Dad? Normal questions. I answered them easily. Too easily. Because I believed my own answers. The first crack appeared the year she turned 18. It was small. Insignificant. A routine doctor's visit. They asked for family medical history. Blood types. I said mine was O. Emily's chart said AB. The nurse frowned. Are you sure? She asked. I laughed. I've known my blood type my whole life. She shrugged. Probably a typo. And I let it go. Because mothers don't doubt motherhood. Emily left for college the following year. The house felt too quiet. Her room stayed exactly the same for months. Sometimes I stood in the doorway just to remember the sound of her laughter. Sometimes I wondered who I was without someone depending on me. I didn't realize that question was about to become much bigger. Her wedding announcement came in the spring. A simple card. A photo of her smiling beside a man who looked at her the way I once hoped someone would look at me. I cried when I saw it. Happy tears. Proud tears. I did this, I thought. I raised someone capable of love. Her father called for the first time in years. Can we talk? He asked. There was something strange in his voice. Tight. Controlled. I assumed it was nerves. We talked about seating arrangements, about speeches, about logistics. He never once said, "I'm proud of you." I didn't notice. I wish I had. 2 weeks before the wedding, a letter arrived. No return address. Typed, not handwritten. Inside was a single sentence. "The truth has a way of showing up when you least expect it." I thought it was spam. A mistake. I threw it away. On the morning of the wedding, as I zipped up my dress and looked in the mirror, I smiled at my reflection. I looked tired, older, but satisfied. I believed I knew exactly who I was. A mother, a survivor, a woman who had done her best. I had no idea that within hours, someone would take that identity from me. Not with cruelty, not with shouting, but with paper. Cold official paper. And the knowledge that for 22 years, I had loved someone with my entire soul, while someone else had been hiding the truth in plain sight. And the worst part? The secret didn't begin at the wedding. It began the night Emily was born. And the person who knew from the very start was the one who slept beside me for years and watched me build a life on a lie. The church was already full when I arrived. Soft music echoed through the hall. Guests whispered, smiled, adjusted their clothes. White flowers lined the aisle, exactly the way Emily had planned them. Everything looked perfect, too perfect, like a picture frozen in time. I took my seat in the front row. Mother of the bride. The words still felt solid then. Real. Earned. Emily hadn't arrived yet. The ceremony was minutes away. That was when I noticed him. A man standing near the side entrance. Mid-40s, maybe older. Dark suit. No boutonniere. He didn't belong to either family. I knew everyone. Or so I thought. He wasn't looking at the decorations. He wasn't looking at the guests. He was looking at me. At first, I assumed he was lost. I smiled politely, the way you do when you're trying to be kind on an important day. He didn't smile back. Instead, he walked toward me slowly, deliberately, like someone approaching a difficult conversation they'd rehearsed many times. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said quietly. "But you're Emily's mother, aren't you?" "Yes," I answered without hesitation. My voice didn't shake. He nodded once. "I won't take much of your time," he said. "But you deserve the truth before this ceremony begins." That sentence made my stomach drop. He handed me an envelope. Plain, white, thick. Inside, he said, were documents he'd been holding onto for more than 20 years. "I tried to stay out of it," he continued. "But today felt wrong." I opened the envelope. DNA test results. Hospital records. A name I didn't recognize listed under biological mother. Not mine. For a moment, the room tilted. I could hear my heartbeat louder than the music, louder than the voices around me. The letters on the page blurred, then sharpened again. "This isn't possible," I whispered. He lowered his voice. "I'm afraid it is." I looked up, scanning the room instinctively. That's when I saw Emily's father, sitting 2 rows back, staring straight ahead, not looking at me. The stranger followed my gaze. "He knows," the man said softly. "He's always known." My breath caught. "Who are you?" I asked. The man hesitated. "Someone who was asked to forget," he said. "Someone who was paid to stay quiet." The music stopped. The doors at the back of the church opened. Everyone stood. Emily appeared at the end of the aisle, radiant, smiling, unaware that the ground beneath her entire life had just cracked open. Applause filled the room. I couldn't stand. I couldn't move. The stranger stepped back, melting into the crowd. "I'm sorry," he said one last time, "but lies don't belong at weddings." Then he was gone. Emily began walking toward the altar. Every step felt like a countdown. I held the envelope in my lap, knuckles white, watching the girl I raised walk forward with complete trust in the people around her. And suddenly, a terrifying thought took shape. If Emily wasn't my biological child, then whose was she? And why had I been chosen to raise her? I glanced again at her father. This time he met my eyes. And in that single look I saw it. Not guilt. Relief. That was when I understood something even worse than the truth itself. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't confusion. This was a decision. One made 22 years ago, and carried out every single day since. I didn't interrupt the ceremony. I didn't scream. I didn't collapse. Because in that moment I knew one thing for certain. Before I confronted anyone, I needed to know everything. Who lied? Who benefited? And who thought love could be replaced by silence? The vows began. And as Emily promised forever to someone she loved, I sat there silently asking myself the only question that mattered now. Was I ever her mother? Or had I been used to protect someone else's secret? I didn't tell Emily. Not that night. Not the next morning. Not even when she hugged me goodbye before leaving for her honeymoon, smiling, happy, completely unaware. I smiled back. Because nothing destroys a daughter faster than learning her life was built on a lie. Especially on the happiest day of her life. If this truth was going to come out, it would come out clean. The moment the house was quiet again, I opened the envelope for the third time. This time, I didn't read it like a mother. I read it like a stranger. Dates. Signatures. Hospital codes. Everything pointed back to the same night. The night Emily was born. I drove to the hospital where I'd given birth 22 years ago. It had been renovated since then, new walls, new paint, but the records department was still in the same place. I told them I was requesting my own medical history. They hesitated, then complied. When the file arrived, my hands started shaking. Not from fear, from recognition. There were 2 births recorded that night. Same time, same floor, same delivery room block. One marked baby A released. One marked baby B transferred. Emily was baby B. I sat in my car afterward for nearly an hour, staring at the steering wheel. Transferred where? And more importantly, why wasn't I told? I called Emily's father. For the first time in years. He answered too quickly, like he'd been waiting for it. So, he said quietly, you finally know. That sentence was the last thread holding my restraint together. You let me raise someone else's child, I said. You watched me sacrifice everything. There was a pause. Then he said something that shattered whatever sympathy I still had left. You were better at it than her real mother would have been. The truth came out in fragments. Emily's biological mother had been young, unstable, desperate. She'd agreed to give the baby up quietly for money. But something went wrong. Papers were misplaced. Stories were rewritten. And suddenly the baby was placed into my arms. Convenient. Legal enough. Permanent. You knew, I whispered. Yes, he admitted. From the beginning. Why didn't you tell me? Another pause. Because you loved her, he said. And because once you did, it didn't matter. I hung up without saying goodbye. Because that sentence revealed everything. To him, my love wasn't sacred. It was useful. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying memories, first steps, birthdays, fevers, tears. All real. All mine. And yet, built on a truth I was never allowed to know. I contacted the stranger from the wedding. It took days. But when he finally agreed to meet me, his first words were, I wondered how long it would take you to find me. He told me the rest. He was a social worker back then. He'd been ordered to stay quiet. Paid off. Threatened. The system doesn't like mistakes, he said. It prefers silence. I asked the question that had been haunting me. Does Emily know? He shook his head. No, he said. And I think that's why you were chosen. I felt something shift inside me then. Not anger. Resolve. Because this wasn't just about biology. It was about choice. Someone had chosen me to love a child without consent. To give everything without truth. To live a life where my role was decided for me. I wasn't angry at Emily. I was angry at the theft. Of my agency. Of my right to decide. And now, standing at the edge of that truth, I faced a decision of my own. Do I tell her? Do I protect her? Or do I confront the people who built an entire life on my silence? I looked at the wedding photo on my phone. Emily smiling. Happy. Safe. For now. I closed the file. And made my choice. The truth would come out. But not through pain. Through accountability. Because love doesn't disappear when biology fails. But lies do. The moment someone refuses to carry them anymore. I didn't tell Emily the truth. Not because she didn't deserve it. But because she deserved more than shock. Truth, when delivered without care, becomes another kind of violence. And I refused to let that be my role in her life. Especially after everything that had already been taken from me. Instead, I went to the people who had decided for both of us. The ones who believed silence was a fair price. For convenience. I asked Emily's father to meet me. Not at my house. Not at his. A neutral place. A small cafe near the hospital where it had all begun. He arrived late. That didn't surprise me. You look tired, he said, sitting down as if this were a casual conversation. I raised your daughter, I replied calmly. Tired comes with the job. He flinched. Just slightly. I placed the documents on the table. Hospital records. DNA results. The social worker's statement. I didn't push them toward him. I let them sit between us. Like a mirror. You let me live a lie for 22 years, I said. You watched me build my life around it. He sighed. I never thought it would matter. That sentence landed heavier than any apology could have. Did you ever plan to tell me? I asked. No, he answered honestly. And neither did she. She, the biological mother. The woman whose absence had shaped my entire adulthood. Where is she now? I asked. He hesitated. That told me enough. She tried to come back, he admitted. Years ago. Asked about Emily. And I told her it was too late. I nodded slowly. So it wasn't just me who had been silenced. You didn't just steal a child, I said. You stole choices. From everyone involved. He looked down at the table. For the first time, he didn't have a justification ready. I'm not here to beg, I continued. And I'm not here to threaten. He looked up. Then why are you here? Because you're going to help me fix this, I said quietly. Or you're going to explain it to a judge. The cafe felt suddenly very small. He laughed once. A nervous sound. You wouldn't do that to Emily. I met his eyes. You already did, I replied. I'm just deciding how much more damage we allow. Silence stretched. People laughed at nearby tables. Life went on. That contrast made everything sharper. Finally, he spoke. What do you want? I want the truth documented, I said. I want records corrected. I want every illegal decision acknowledged. And Emily? He asked. Emily will hear the truth from me, I said. When it no longer protects liars. He leaned back, defeated. You always were stronger than you realized, he muttered. I didn't take that as a compliment. That night, I sat alone in my living room and looked at photos of Emily through the years. First steps. Graduation. Her wedding day. Nothing in those images was fake. Not the laughter. Not the love. I understood something then. Motherhood isn't biology. It's presence. It's consistency. It's showing up even when no one is watching. But lies? They rot quietly. Until someone refuses to carry them anymore. The next morning, I began the formal process. Legal requests. Affidavits. Official complaints. Not to punish. To expose. Because exposure is the only thing lies fear. I knew Emily would eventually ask questions. She always had. But when she did, I wanted to be able to say this with absolute certainty. I never lied to you. I just waited until the truth could no longer hurt you more than the lie already had. That evening, Emily called me from her honeymoon. Her voice was light. Happy. Mom, she said. I miss you. I closed my eyes. I miss you too, I replied. And I always will. Because no matter what the paperwork said, that part was still true. Emily didn't suspect anything at first. Not during the honeymoon. Not in the weeks after. She sent photos, beaches, sunsets, smiling faces. She called me Mom, the same way she always had, with warmth, with certainty. Every time she said it, my chest tightened, but I answered just as warmly. Because love doesn't disappear when the truth is delayed. It waits. The first crack appeared quietly. Emily called one evening, her voice thoughtful. Mom, she said, can I ask you something a little strange? I knew. The moment always announces itself before it arrives. Of course, I said. I was filling out some medical paperwork, she explained. Family history. Blood types. Dad said his is A. You told me yours is O. But mine is AB. She laughed softly, trying to make it small. The nurse said it's rare, but not impossible. Still, is there something I don't know? I closed my eyes. 22 years of silence balanced on a single question. No, I said gently. There's nothing you've done wrong. That wasn't a lie. She hesitated. You didn't answer the question. I will, I said. Just not tonight. Silence stretched between us. Then she said, okay. But something in her voice had changed. Trust doesn't shatter all at once. It fractures. Over the next few weeks, the questions came more often. About the hospital. About baby photos. About why her father always avoided certain topics. I answered honestly, without revealing everything. Yet, meanwhile, the legal process moved forward. Records were reviewed. Decisions were documented. Mistakes that had once been hidden under bureaucracy were now written in black and white. The truth was no longer just mine to carry. That mattered. One afternoon, Emily showed up at my door. Unannounced. She looked older somehow. Not aged. Aware. Mom, she said, standing there with her keys in her hand. I think you're protecting me from something. I stepped aside and let her in. Protection, I had learned, only works with consent. We sat at the kitchen table. The same table where she'd done homework. Where I'd kissed scraped knees. Where life had unfolded honestly, except for one thing. She looked at me carefully. Am I adopted? She asked. I took a slow breath. No, I said. Her shoulders relaxed for half a second. Then I continued. But the truth is more complicated than that. I didn't give her documents. I didn't say names. I gave her context. I told her there had been mistakes. That decisions had been made without my consent. That someone else had known things I hadn't. And you? She asked quietly. What did you know? Nothing, I answered. Until your wedding. Her eyes widened. Is that why you looked different? She whispered. That day. I nodded. She leaned back in her chair, stunned. You waited, she said. For me. For you, I replied. And for the truth to be safe. Tears filled her eyes. Not anger. Not betrayal. Fear. Am I still yours? She asked. That question broke me. I reached across the table and took her hands. You were mine when I chose you every day, I said. You were mine when I stayed up all night. You were mine when I let you go. I squeezed her fingers. No document can take that away. She cried then. Quietly. Deeply. I held her like I always had. Not as a secret. As a mother. Later, she asked the question I'd been bracing for. Do you know who my biological mother is? Yes, I said. Will I meet her? I paused. That will be your choice, I replied. When you're ready. She nodded. That was enough for now. That night after she left, I sat alone in the dark. The hardest part was over. Not because the truth was out, but because it had been received with love. Some secrets destroy families when they surface. Others reveal which bonds were real all along. Emily called me the next morning. Her voice steadier. Mom, she said. Thank you for waiting until I could hear it. I smiled through tears. Some truths don't need to arrive early. They just need to arrive gently. Emily didn't rush into anything after that night. Neither did I. Truth has weight. If you move too fast, you drop it. And it breaks people instead of freeing them. So we waited. Weeks passed. Then months. Emily went back to her life, work, marriage, routines, carrying a new awareness quietly the way strong people do. We spoke often, but not obsessively. We laughed. We argued about small things. We stayed normal on purpose. Because normal was proof. The request came from her, not from me. I think I want to meet her, Emily said one evening. Not because I need her, but because I need to understand. I nodded. That's the right reason, I said. The meeting was arranged through lawyers and social services. No surprises. No ambushes. No drama. Just a neutral room, neutral chairs, neutral air. That neutrality mattered more than comfort. The woman who walked in looked ordinary. That shocked me more than anything. She wasn't cruel looking. She wasn't broken. She wasn't powerful. She was just someone who had made a decision, and then lived with it by not looking back. Until now. Emily stood when she entered. Not out of respect. Out of instinct. The woman froze when she saw her. Not because Emily looked like her, but because Emily looked whole. Loved. That's the kind of sight that exposes regret instantly. I'm sorry, the woman said. Immediately. Too quickly. Apologies that arrive first usually arrive too late. Emily listened. She didn't interrupt. Didn't accuse. She asked questions. Clear ones. Hard ones. Did you think about me? Did you ever try to come back? Did you know I was loved? The woman answered honestly, for the first time in her life. Yes. Yes. And no, not at first. That answer hurt. But it wasn't lethal. Because Emily wasn't hearing it as a child anymore. She was hearing it as an adult who had already survived love. When the woman finally turned to me, her voice shook. I never meant for you to suffer, she said. I thought you were strong enough. I met her eyes calmly. You didn't think of me at all, I replied. And that's the truth we're not going to rewrite. She nodded. Because there was nothing to argue with. The meeting didn't end with reconciliation. It ended with clarity. Emily hugged her politely. Briefly. Then walked out without looking back. No tears. No anger. Just boundaries. In the car afterward, Emily was quiet. Finally, she said, I don't feel empty. I smiled. That's because nothing was taken from you, I said. You were added to my life, not removed from hers. She reached for my hand. Time did what time does best. It settled things. Emily didn't pursue a relationship with her biological mother. Not out of bitterness. Out of choice. They exchanged a few messages over the next year. Then fewer. Then none. Closure doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just stops knocking. As for me, I stopped questioning my place in her story, because the answer had been there all along. I was the one who stayed, the one who showed up, the one who didn't need permission to love. One afternoon, Emily asked me something I'll never forget. "If I have a child one day, will you help me raise them?" I laughed. "Only if you promise to let me spoil them." She smiled. "Deal." That was the moment I understood the final truth. Family isn't formed by blood. It's formed by continuity. By who stays when staying is hard. By who tells the truth without destroying. By who chooses love again after learning how easily it can be misused. I raised a child that was never mine. And in doing so, I learned that motherhood is not a claim. It's a commitment. One I honored every day, even when the truth arrived late. Some people think this story is about betrayal. It isn't. It's about consent. And what happens when love survives the truth instead of collapsing under it. Emily didn't lose a mother. She gained agency. I didn't lose a daughter. I gained certainty. And the people who lied, they lost something far more permanent than trust. They lost relevance. This is how the story ends. Not with confrontation. Not with forgiveness demanded. Not with pain recycled. But with choice. I didn't give birth to Emily. But I raised her. And in the end, that was the only truth that mattered.